Physical somas we can create like the tarpa kapha, like the ojas for strengthening the physical body. We have somas of the mind that we can develop through pranayama, mantra, and meditation. But the highest soma is that of pure awareness. And one of the very interesting rules of soma, rejuvenation and transformation, is that it always arises through stillness, silence, and space. So at the highest level, it doesn't come through something, some substance, or some action. It occurs through going back to that original core of our being. It's interesting that in the Sanskrit, Soma is another name for Shiva. And in fact, Soma also means Sa is he and Uma. So Shiva plus Shakti, or Shiva plus Uma is Soma. Because the Shiva is the basic state of stillness, which allows the Soma to flow. And the Shakti is the state of total dynamic movement and transformation, which constitutes the flow or the movement of Soma, the ananda that pervades the entire universe. That is why one of the highest forms of Soma is the Soma born of meditation. Soma is said to be a plant that grows in a mountain lake. And there's been a lot of debate among various scientists, historians, and anthropologists as to what the original Soma plant was or is. As I explained in some detail, Soma was never one plant. Soma is on one level the healing essence of all the plants. And the highest plant is the plant of our own nervous system. And the Soma that flows through the nervous system. As the Vedas say that the Soma known to the wise, the people of wisdom, no mortal ever drank. Because it is an inner essence or experience. But that Soma is there inside of us and can be accessed in many different ways. And so the mountain lake is symbolic of the meditative mind. And this is a very important principle. The more we bring coolness, calmness, and composure to the mind, the more the Soma flows. The more we stimulate the mind from the outside, the more we deplete the Soma. And again, this is not just an abstract statement. It is also a statement of depletion of vital energies, a depletion of Tarpa Kapha, a depletion of the ojas that can be measured. There's a whole science of Soma on all these different levels that is going on. And there are the different tools that we can use to develop and transform our Soma. So as you begin to understand this theme of Soma, it gains a great deal of richness to it. You know, it becomes one of these, what we say, universal metaphors. For example, in the ancient Greek thought, Soma means the body. And that's why you have this thing of psychosomatic diseases or somatic conditions. Because on the one hand, the body is the vehicle of experience. It is what is put together. Or in terms of Ayurveda, the Soma is the dhatus, or the tissues. The Agni is the digestive fire that builds them up. But at a deeper level, Soma is the mind, because the ultimate essence of the digestion is not simply the tissues or the body, but also the mind. So the Soma theme I've tried to introduce back into the yogic thought. This afternoon we'll talk a little bit more about the yogic side, because yoga is also Agni and Soma. Even the inner yoga is raising the Agni or the Kundalini fire and the descent of the Soma, the Amrit, the nectar from the Sahasrara, or the crown chakra, or the true inner plant or lotus of the head. That same dynamic movement of energies is going on. So the more we understand these principles, the more power we have. And one of the problems that's happened for us in the yogic realm is yoga has been defined more, as we say, as physical movement. And our ability to access the inner energies of yoga and understand them is often limited. But there are ways of working with the pranas, the deeper agnis, the somas, that are experiential. They are not simply theoretical, they are not simply abstract meditation. There's an inner flow of forces that goes on. And these are also connected to the deities or the devatas. In fact, all the deities are usually divided into two groups. The Agni forms, the fiery forms, which are often the strong, the harsh, or even malefic forms. And the Soma forms, the nurturing, the gentle, the blissful, the helpful forms. This is the same thing with the planets. Planets are divided into the malefic or the Agneya forms and the benefic or the Samya forms. And the fiery forms, fiery energy works to purify. Inwardly to purify, outwardly to protect, like Durga. Durga is born of Agni. Durga is the fire born of the earth. Durga is the protective form, the incarnate form of the mother and her different energies of life. Here she works primarily to protect, but there are also other purifying forms. Kundalini Shakti is a form of fire or purification. First thing it works to do is burn up the ego. That is what it is for, to burn up the ego, to purify the lower chakras. Soma is the Lakshmi forms, or in terms of the yoga practice, the Sundari forms, as we'll be discussing. The Tripura Sundari is the Devi who governs the Soma, governs the Sahasrara and the Sri Vidya. But even the Devas, Shiva, Rudra is his fierce or his Agni form, whereas Shiva, Shankara, Sadashiva, Shambhu, Soma is his Soma form or his benefic form. But sometimes Shiva is seen as more Agni and Vishnu is seen as more Soma. There's a dance, a play of these different energies at different levels, but the same principles are there. The higher Soma forms work to rejuvenate and to restore us at a higher level once we have been purified and protected by the fiery force. The fiery force also works to purify and prepare the Soma. In fact, our own experiences, we cannot throw them away. They need to be purified or transformed. Even emotion is not something you can suppress or destroy. It's an energy of the mind or the prana, but you can purify it, transform it, and turn it into Soma. Soma is the refined essence. Most of us live in the unrefined state. It's sort of like gold in the crude ore state. In order to get the gold out, you have to heat it. And then the gold ore will flow and can be removed from the crude rock that holds it. So we're constantly creating more refinement. The Agni is developing the Soma, and the Soma is nourishing the the Agni. You can also see the type of Agni you have by the type of Soma or food that you are feeding it with, starting with the digestive fire. Look at the type of food that you give the digestive fire, and that will tell you if it's a Rajasic, Tamasic, or Sattvic Agni that you're cultivating in the process. So too with the sensory impressions you take in, you can see the nature of the fire of the mind that you are cultivating. And as we work with the Devatas, or these cosmic forces, we can bring in the cosmic energies of Agni and Soma. These are what is truly transformative. If we just rely upon what's there in our own body and mind, it's something limited. But the Soma is flowing everywhere in the universe. The Agni is flowing everywhere in the universe. For example, Gayatri Mantra is a way of connecting with the Agni or the Tejas of Surya, which is the power of the divine light. See, it is a way of reaching the light power that is working through all the different lokas of the universe, so that your awareness can expand into the universal spheres. It's also curious, many people don't know, the Triambika mantra, even though it is to Shiva, is a Soma mantra, because it is Sugandhi, what is fragrant, and Pushti Vardhanam, what increases the nourishment. But it's a kind of Soma that's coming forth from the purified or the transformed Agni. Mrityu Mukshinamamrita, release us from death but not from immortality. It's a way of purifying the mortal side and connecting us with the immortal side. So there is the Agni Soma flow through all the mantras. Later on, Shambhavi will teach you, we'll also discuss some more specific Soma mantras. There are Agni and Soma mantras. For example, Kali mantras, Krim Hum Krim, is a Agni mantra, whereas the Sundari mantra, Rim Shrim Klim Aim Soha, Soma mantra. And these things have effects either to work on the Agni force below or to get the Soma force above the Smara, the Smarana, the Smriti, the Soma to flow. So all the yogic and Ayurvedic and Jyotish sciences are based upon the Agni Soma, and the Soma is the higher level or the fruit of the Agni. Generally you first cultivate the Agni for the purification in order to prepare the higher Soma for the Soma to flow. But at the same time, we need to introduce some aspect of Soma into our practice. Agni is also tapas. Fruit of tapas is the Soma. And we need to cultivate in our yoga the Soma of the yoga, the Soma of bhakti, the Soma of jnana. Even an asana done properly has a certain Soma to it. There's a certain sense of harmony, balance, well-being, or contentment that it gives you. And one of the most powerful tools for developing the Soma is the pranayama. Prana has a certain rasa or Soma to it, although prana also has an Agni or purifying energy. And there are Agni-based pranayamas and also Soma-based pranayamas, as there are Agni-based mantras and Soma-based mantras. And of course, Agni and Soma are also the sun and moon. Even the whole idea of balancing the Ida and Pingala, the solar and lunar nadis, is one of the preliminary practices for getting the inner Soma to move or to flow. Flow of Shishuna is also flow of Soma. So there's a whole alchemy to the yoga practice that is connected to Agni and Soma, and that links the yoga, and that also links the Ayurveda together. And you'll find a lot of it in traditional Hatha Yoga, and even in the traditional Tantric Yoga. I'm not talking about modern Hatha Yoga or so much the modern Tantric Yoga, But the Sri Vidya and also in the Hatha Yoga, the balancing of the Agni and Soma, Agni below and the Soma above, Agni as the digestive fire, and Soma as the Tarka Kapha, which is connected to the salt palate of the head, which is the Soma site at a physiological level, and the need to balance those two energies through the various practices like the bandhas, the pranayama, nadi shodhana, and all of that. There was a deep understanding of these Agni-Soma forces behind the Hatha Yoga and also behind the Raja Yoga. And that is a connection too. You see, at the Vedic level, the ritual is done outwardly through making offerings into the fire. Even so, this affects the subtle environment and your own subtle body. But in yoga, the ritual is done internally, using the inner fires and the inner offerings, which are connected to the speech, mind, and prana, and also to the sense organs and the motor organs, so that another type of ritual and another type of offering, another type of soma can flow. So you see in the end, everything is soma. Everything you are cultivating, soma. What soma are you cultivating? What ananda, what enjoyment, what happiness, what well-being, soma can also be defined as well-being, are you creating in the process? And so it's very good to understand these tools of yoga, Ayurveda, Vedic astrology. Even in Vedic astrology we can do certain mantras or rituals to the moon, or sometimes to the other planets to increase the flow of soma. Even gazing at the moon, not so much when it's bright and full, is a way of connecting to some of the inner flow of the soma. There are many tools accessing soma in nature, in the water, in the plants, in various forms and structures. So the theme of soma brings a whole new richness and a deeper understanding to our yoga and Ayurveda. And particularly from the Ayurveda, it helps us bring in more of this dimension of nurturing, rejuvenation, and revitalization, rather than simply detoxification. And it's also a way of building in our inner soma, which is building up the subtle body, the higher mind, and the higher